You wake up tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but the kind that weighs on your chest before your feet even touch the floor. You go through the motions, shower, coffee, responsibilities, but inside, something is screaming. You think it's stress. You think it's just the job, or the bills, or getting older, but deep down you know you're not just tired. You're carrying the unbearable weight of living a life that doesn't belong to you. No one ever told you that exhaustion could be existential, that you could be drained not by activity, but by identity. Every single day you're performing, smiling when you feel broken, agreeing when your soul says no, helping everyone except yourself, playing roles that were assigned to you before you even had a chance to know who you were. And this is why you're exhausted. Not because of what you're doing, but because of who you're pretending to be. Since childhood, you were trained to comply, to be good, to be easy to love, easy to manage, easy to explain. You were praised when you stayed quiet, rewarded when you agreed, taught that fitting in is survival. And so you did. You became the version of yourself that made other people comfortable. You chose acceptance over authenticity. You became who they needed you to be, not who you truly are. Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to navigate society. And while the persona can protect us, it also imprisons us. Because the more you hide behind it, the more you disconnect from your soul. And your soul, unlike your ego, doesn't scream. It whispers. It speaks through fatigue, disconnection, emotional numbness. That heaviness you feel, that's not just mental burnout. That's the consequence of living out of alignment with your essence. Think about it. How often do you silence yourself to keep the peace? How often do you sacrifice your desires just to avoid disappointing someone? How many times have you laughed when you wanted to cry, or stayed when every cell in your body begged you to leave? Every moment you betray yourself for the comfort of others, you pay with your energy. Your soul doesn't forget. It's why you feel empty even when life looks normal. It's why you feel anxious when nothing's wrong. It's why you collapse in silence at night, wondering why everything feels so heavy, even though you did everything right. Because you've built your life around expectations, not truth. And truth, when denied for too long, becomes a wound that drains everything. Let me show you something. Look at the people around you. Who actually knows the real you? Not the version of you that shows up at work. Not the one who replies to messages immediately or says, "I'm fine," out of habit. Who really sees you, your fears, your rage, your dreams, your fatigue? The answer might terrify you, because if no one sees the real you, maybe it's because you stopped showing up a long time ago. And here's the cruel part. The world rewards your mask. People like you more when you're agreeable. They respect you when you don't make demands. They value you when you're predictable. But that same predictability turns you into a tool, a source of comfort, validation, availability, not a person. You become the emotional emergency button they press when they need relief. And once you've served your purpose, they put you back on the shelf. Quiet, convenient, exhausted. You're tired because you're fighting a war every day between who you are and who you're expected to be. And you're losing, not because you're weak, but because the cost of this performance is your life force. Jung believed that the unconscious always seeks expression. If it's not expressed consciously, it emerges as fate. And this is your fate now, living as a stranger inside your own skin, exhausted by a life that was never yours to begin with. But there's something even more painful than exhaustion. It's realizing that you chose this. Not consciously, not deliberately, but slowly over time, through thousands of tiny decisions to stay quiet, to be liked, to avoid conflict. You handed over your authenticity one compromise at a time. And now you're looking in the mirror, trying to find a face that feels like home. And the worst part, you still think being tired is normal. You still think it's just life. But what if I told you that your exhaustion is sacred? That it's not a weakness but a message, a warning from the deepest part of you that you've abandoned something essential. and that no amount of rest will fix it until you return to yourself. You were not born to be a machine of productivity. You were not meant to be defined by what others expect of you. Your fatigue is not a flaw, it's a signal, a wake-up call, and the longer you ignore it, the louder it gets, until eventually your body begins to shut down what your soul has been screaming all along. So now I'll ask you something simple but uncomfortable. What version of yourself are you performing right now? And what would happen if just for a moment you stopped pretending? If you removed the mask, not for anyone else, but for yourself? Would you recognize what's underneath, or would it scare you? Carl Jung believed that the process of becoming whole, the process of individuation, begins the moment we stop being who the world wants and start becoming who we truly are. But that path begins with one terrifying act: honesty. Honesty about the roles we're tired of playing, about the masks that no longer fit, about the fatigue we can no longer numb. And that's exactly where we're going next. Because until you understand how fear made you choose this life, you won't know how to reclaim it. In the next part, we'll expose the silent decisions you made that led to this exhaustion, and how your deepest fatigue is rooted not in failure, but in fear. If this message spoke to a part of you that's been silent for too long, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, what part of your life no longer feels like it belongs to you? And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe. There's more waiting for you here, truths that the world keeps hiding. You didn't just wake up one day in a life that doesn't feel like yours. You didn't just stumble into exhaustion and emotional emptiness. It happened slowly, quietly, so silently that you didn't even realize it was happening. But now you're here, drained, disconnected, and wondering why you feel like you're suffocating inside your own existence. And the answer is brutal. You're living a life you accepted out of fear, not out of truth. It started with small moments, when you chose what your parents wanted instead of what you loved. When you stayed in a relationship that didn't feel right because you were afraid of being alone. When you picked the job that was safe instead of the one that made your soul light up. You convinced yourself that you were being responsible, being smart, being mature. But really, you were choosing fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of disappointing people who never truly knew your heart. Carl Jung called this betrayal of the self, loss of soul. It's when we abandon our inner truth to survive in a world that rewards conformity. You traded your dreams for approval. You gave up your voice to keep the peace, and you told yourself it was just temporary, that one day, maybe, you'd come back to who you really are. But that day never came, because fear doesn't just delay your truth, it buries it. You took the promotion you didn't want. You said yes to responsibilities that drained you. You surrounded yourself with people who don't see you because it was easier than being seen and possibly rejected. And now, years later, your body feels heavy, your mind won't rest, and you feel like you're watching someone else live your life. That's not just burnout. That's spiritual fatigue, the deep, soul-level exhaustion that comes from living disconnected from your essence. Fear disguises itself as logic, as practicality. It tells you that now is not the time, that you should be grateful, that you can't afford to start over. And the more you listen to it, the more your inner world collapses. You become a prisoner in your own routine. You smile through meetings where your spirit isn't present. You laugh at conversations you don't care about. You perform a version of yourself that looks alive, but feels dead. And here's the part that hurts the most. You've become so good at this performance that most people around you have no idea. They think you're doing fine, maybe even successful. You're stable, reliable, productive. But they don't know that every day you feel further from yourself, that even when you're surrounded by people, you feel completely alone, because how could they know? You've made sure they only see what's acceptable, what's polished, what's survivable. But surviving is not the same as living. Surviving is waking up every day with a pit in your stomach and calling it normal. It's pushing through the week just to collapse into distraction on the weekend. It's telling yourself that you should be happy while something inside you slowly dies. Jung believed that the psyche cannot sustain this split for long. Eventually, the unconscious will demand to be heard, through symptoms, through crisis, through collapse. Maybe you've already felt it. The moment when something small triggers something massive inside you. A comment, a memory, a silence. And suddenly, you're overwhelmed with sadness you can't explain. Rage that feels disproportionate. A desire to run away from everything. That's not random. That's your real self pounding on the walls of the persona you've built. It's your truth demanding a voice. And the truth is this: you're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you're loyal to an identity that was never yours. You've spent years trying to prove yourself in a life you didn't even choose. And that inner conflict, that constant negotiation between what you feel and what you do, is the root of your fatigue. Think about the relationships you've kept out of obligation, the roles you've maintained to avoid guilt, the passions you've buried so you wouldn't be unrealistic. Every piece of your authentic self that you suppressed is now pressing back, trying to break through. And the more you resist, the more it drains you, because living a lie, no matter how functional it looks, costs more energy than living your truth ever will. And it's not just emotional, it's physical. You feel it in your shoulders, your back, your gut, in the headaches that come out of nowhere, in the sleep that never restores you. Jung didn't separate the mind from the body. He saw the body as a messenger of the soul, and right now your body is screaming what your mouth refuses to say. I can't keep doing this. You may think it's too late, that you've already built a life around this version of you, and changing now would destroy everything. But ask yourself this: what are you really destroying? The illusion, the mask, the expectations that keep you stuck. Is that worth preserving at the cost of your vitality? What you're protecting isn't your life, it's your fear. And fear is a terrible architect. It builds foundations that crack under pressure. It decorates your cage with comforts. It whispers that safety is better than freedom. But Jung believed that the greatest transformations happen when we walk into that fear, not with recklessness, but with awareness. When we stop asking, what will they think, and start asking, what do I need to live fully? So I'll ask you now, what part of your life did you accept out of fear? What path are you still walking because you're afraid to admit it was never yours? And most importantly, what would it feel like to choose truth over fear, even if it costs everything you've built so far? Because that's where we're headed next. Into the heart of that fear. Into the exact moment you started abandoning yourself, and how you can begin finally to come back home. Have you ever felt like you were living a life that didn't belong to you? I'd love to hear your experience. Drop it in the comments so we can create a space for truth and healing. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next step in this journey back to yourself. You look around and realize something terrifying. You're surrounded by people, yet you feel completely alone. It's not because you're antisocial or ungrateful. It's because something inside you knows that the connections you've built were not made with your real self. They were built on the version of you that was safest to present. The agreeable one, the helpful one, the one who always knows what to say to avoid discomfort. And now you're starting to see the cracks. You're starting to wonder, if I stopped performing, who would still be here? Carl Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But what he didn't always say out loud is the price of that privilege. The relationships that don't survive when you stop pretending, because the people around you, whether they know it or not, have adapted to the version of you that served their needs. They're used to your availability, your silence, your ability to carry emotional weight that doesn't belong to you. And when that starts to change, even slightly, they feel it, they notice, and not everyone reacts with love. The truth is, many of your relationships are not with you. They're with the role you agreed to play. the caretaker, the fixer, the listener, the one who never asks for much, and these roles are comforting for them, but suffocating for you. You may think you're being kind, being supportive, being strong, but all too often, what you're really being is invisible. Because as long as you're showing up as the person who keeps everything together, no one ever asks, "How are you really?" And if they did ask, would you even know how to answer? Because when you spend years hiding your truth, you forget what it even sounds like. You begin to believe that your needs are too much, that your pain is inconvenient, that your anger is a threat. So you compress it, layer by layer, until your voice gets smaller, until you can't tell the difference between your true self and your social survival self. It's subtle at first. You're just being flexible. You're just avoiding drama. You don't want to be difficult, but over time, this becomes your identity. And the people in your life, those who benefit from your silence, start to see this version of you as fixed, predictable, safe. Not because they're evil, but because they're comfortable. They know exactly what to expect from you. You've become a role, not a person. But here's what they don't know. That role is killing you. Every time you override your instincts to keep someone else happy, you abandon yourself. Every time you swallow your truth to avoid conflict, you train your nervous system to believe that honesty is dangerous. And the cost? Chronic fatigue, anxiety, resentment, loneliness surrounded by noise. You've become emotionally overexposed and spiritually malnourished. And here's where it gets even more painful. The moment you start reclaiming your truth, when you begin to set boundaries, to say no, to express needs, you will feel resistance. People will say you've changed. They might call you selfish, distant, cold. But what they're really saying is this: you're no longer convenient for me, and that is the test. Can you withstand being misunderstood by the people who only loved your compliance? Can you hold your ground when your silence is no longer protecting their comfort? Because Jung warned us, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. And the opposite is true as well. Everything that irritates others about your awakening reveals the limits of their capacity to meet you where you are. You're not losing people. You're losing roles that you never should have played in the first place. Let that sink in. The moment you begin to show up as your real self, the one who feels deeply, who needs rest, who says no, who demands respect, the false connections will begin to fall away. And yes, that will feel like grief. It will feel like loss. But what you're really shedding is the illusion that you had to earn love by shrinking. And here's something else Jung deeply believed in: projection. He said that what people cannot face in themselves, they will project onto others. So when you stop playing the peacemaker, the emotional container, the emotional punching bag, they won't just be uncomfortable. They'll start projecting. They'll call you cold when you're actually protecting your peace. They'll call you unstable when you're finally releasing years of suppressed pain. They'll call you dramatic when you're just being honest. And you'll be tempted to fall back into the old version of yourself, just to make the noise stop, just to make people like you again, just to feel loved. But here's the secret. They never loved you. They loved the function you served. It's devastating, but it's also your liberation, because once you recognize who you are outside of other people's comfort, you begin to meet yourself for the first time. And that's when real connections can begin, relationships based not on your usefulness, but your essence. You will attract people who don't flinch at your truth, who don't need you to be small, who don't mistake boundaries for rejection. And yes, they are rare, but they are real, and they will find you once you stop hiding. So now ask yourself, who in your life actually sees you? Who remains when you're not performing? Who stays close when you express discomfort? When you stop giving endlessly, when you say no? Because in the next part, we will explore what happens when the mask finally breaks, how your body begins to speak the pain you've silenced, and why your emotional fatigue becomes physical when you keep betraying yourself in the name of being loved. Leave a comment below if this video made you reflect on your own emotional fatigue. Your story might be the one that helps someone else feel seen. And while you're here, hit that subscribe button, because this isn't just content, it's a path. And it's only just beginning. You think your body is betraying you. You wake up exhausted. Your back hurts. Your chest feels tight. Your stomach knots for no reason. You tell yourself it's stress, aging, maybe bad sleep or bad posture. You reach for caffeine, push through the day, try to stretch, try to breathe, but nothing truly helps. Because the truth is, your body isn't failing you. It's protecting you. It's screaming for you. It's saying what your voice still doesn't have the courage to admit: I can't keep living like this. Carl Jung didn't see the body and mind as separate. He saw the body as the soul's last resort. When your spirit has been silenced for too long, it sends the message another way, through symptoms. The tension you carry, it's not random. It's not just physical. It's the weight of unspoken truths, unmet needs, and years of emotional self-abandonment. Your body has become the stage where your psychological pain plays out when you refuse to face it. Think of every time you said yes when you meant no. Every moment you pretended to be fine just to avoid an argument. Every night you cried silently while convincing the world you were okay. Those weren't isolated events. They were energy transactions, and you paid for them with your health. You gave pieces of your vitality to people, places, expectations, and now you're depleted. We live in a culture that teaches us to numb, not to feel. If you're tired, drink coffee. If you're anxious, distract yourself. If you're angry, calm down. If you're grieving, move on. There's no space to actually listen to what the body is saying. But the body doesn't lie. And the longer you ignore its signals, the louder they become. That's why your sleep isn't restful. Why you wake up feeling like you've already run a marathon. Why you feel off even on days when nothing's technically wrong. Because something is wrong, deeply wrong. You've abandoned yourself so many times that your nervous system has stopped trusting you. You override its alarms. You dismiss its discomfort. You silence its tremors. So now it speaks through fatigue, through tightness, through those mysterious aches that doctors can't quite explain. Not because you're imagining it, but because your soul is done being ignored. And here's the irony: the world celebrates your silence, your ability to keep showing up, to never complain, to hold it together no matter what. They call you strong, dependable, admirable, but they don't see the price you're paying. They don't see you collapsing on the bathroom floor. They don't hear the conversations you have with yourself at 2 a.m., wondering how long you can keep going like this. They only see the mask, and they applaud it. But masks are heavy, and after years of wearing them, your body starts to crack beneath the weight. Jung believed that symptoms are symbolic. They carry the meaning your conscious mind refuses to process. That constant tension in your shoulders, you're carrying responsibilities that aren't yours, the tightness in your chest. You've suppressed grief, anger, fear, the headaches. You're overthinking every interaction, censoring your truth, calculating your every word to avoid rejection. You're not just tired, you're spiritually starving. And your body knows, it always knows. People talk about burnout as if it's something that happens only from working too much. But true burnout is the result of living in a constant state of disconnection from your truth, from your boundaries, from your needs. It's what happens when you become so used to surviving that you forget what it feels like to be alive. You start avoiding silence because silence reminds you of the emptiness. You stay busy so you don't have to feel. You scroll, you binge, you distract. Because if you ever stopped, even for a second, you might hear the truth and it terrifies you. That this life you're living doesn't fit anymore. That you've built everything on top of a version of you that no longer exists. But eventually your body will make you stop. It'll demand your attention. Not out of punishment, but out of desperation. It will force rest. It will break patterns. It will give you no choice but to listen. And when that day comes, you'll realize this was never about physical health. It was about truth, your truth, buried beneath years of compliance. The fatigue you feel is sacred. It's not laziness, it's not weakness. It's a message, a wake-up call, a threshold. It's your body asking, when will you choose you? Not the version of you that pleases everyone, not the persona that earns applause, but the real you, the one who feels, who hurts, who dreams, who says no. And here's the most important thing. Healing doesn't begin when you change your habits. It begins when you change your loyalty. When you stop being loyal to pain, to performance, to expectations that drain you, and start being loyal to your soul, even if that means disappointing everyone else. It won't be easy. You'll feel selfish. You'll be misunderstood. People will say you've changed, but what they really mean is that you've stopped dying for their comfort, that you've stopped using your body as a dumping ground for emotional dysfunction. So I ask you, what has your body been trying to tell you? What emotions have you silenced for so long that they had no choice but to manifest physically? What would it look like to treat your fatigue not as an enemy to fix, but as an ally guiding you back to yourself? Because in the next part, we're going to face that question directly. We'll explore what it truly means to stop betraying yourself and how the act of choosing your truth, no matter the cost, is the only way to stop feeling exhausted and finally start to feel alive.